Assalamualaikum and hello my students. My name is Dr. Hamzah bin Abdul Aziz. I am one of the lecturers who are teaching BIO270 for this semester. Hope you all fit and fine. Now I will give my lecture on chapter number 11 entitled Transport in Vascular Plant for the first part only. Based on the title for this chapter number 11, Transport in Vascular Plant. So what do we mean by vascular plant all about? So vascular plant is a group of plants that exists in this world in terms of its group number a lot compared with other group of plants that exist in this world. Besides that, this group of plants that is called vascular plant, they have well-developed system for transporting water and food. They have two roots, stem and leaf organ. Those systems that present inside the vascular plant tissue, they help circulate water and food throughout the plant. Vascular plant rely on specialized tissue that we call vascular tissue to transport water and nutrient and product of photosynthesis around the plant. There are two types of vascular tissue that present inside the vascular plant which are xylem and phloem. Xylem transport water and mineral from the root up to the rest of the plant, whereby phloem transport food from the leaf down to the rest of the plant. Now we move to the second slide belong to this chapter number 11, talking about syllabus belong to chapter number 11. Only two syllabus that we will cover for this chapter number 11, which are the first one, uptake and transport of water, and mineral. The second syllabus belong to this the first part for chapter number 11, which is uptake and transport of organic substance. Learning outcome that we can derive from this chapter number 11 for the first part only. At the end of the topic, you should be able to explain how water and solute are taken by individual cells. The second learning outcome derived for this chapter number 11, which is explain the short distance transport of solute and water between cells and to vascular tissue. This slide, we will continue our lecture right now for this slide. This slide on overview of the first part for chapter 11 for the introduction part for this chapter. Physical forces drive the transport material in the plant over the range or distance. So physical forces here, for example, like pressure factor that can cause the translation of metal, for example, like nutrient, mineral, and input for water molecule that can be transported inside the plant tissue. One of the factor exercise is now the physical forces, for example, like pressure factor. Transport in the vascular plant process occur on three scales or levels. The first one that we call transport of water and solute by individual cells, such as happen in root hair tissue. The second level or scale, which is short distance transport of substance from cell to cell at the level of tissue and organ. Lastly, the scale or the level in terms of transportation of metal inside the plant tissue that we call long-distance transport within xylem and phloem at the level of whole plant. Figure in this slide provide an overview of resource acquisition and transport in vascular plant. So what do we mean by plant resources here? Example of plant resources here, as stated, or we can view it based on figure within this slide. For example, like water molecule, carbon dioxide gases, oxygen gases, and include for mineral. So all these metals needed by vascular plant for growth and development. Besides that, plant resources, as shown in this figure as well, transport in plant tissue as follows. Use of vascular system, root absorb water and mineral from the soil and transport them up as xylem sap. During photosynthesis, leaf take in carbon dioxide gases and expel oxygen gases and water molecule through stomata. The loss of water from stomata create a force called transpiration that pulls xylem sap outward. Sugar produced by photosynthesis are transported as phloem sap to another part of the plant. Next we move to the next slide. This one. Notes for this slide, are stated. Three levels of transport across the plant. The first one, uptake of water and solute by individual cell. This one. the second level of transportation of matter inside the plant tissue, which is short distance transport of solute and water from the cell to the cell at the level of tissue and organ. Lastly, long distance transport of the cell by the xylem and phloem at the wool plant level, or that we call bulk flow. Okay, let's continue our lecture for this slide. Okay, for this slide, now we want to discuss about the transport in the plant at the first level, which is called uptake of water and solute by individual cells. There are two major ways that molecules can be moved across the membrane, which are passive and active mechanisms. So, for the first one is passive transport. Molecules tend to move down their concentration gradient. Okay, transport protein embedded in membrane can speed movement across the membrane. Okay, information related about uptake of water and solute by individual cells for the second mechanism or process that we call active transport. This is the slide. Okay, we want to discuss about active transport. The transport method through the cell membrane belong to the plant cell in terms of you want to transport in and out matter inside the plant cell. Okay, for the active transport, okay, uptake of water and solute by individual cell to the plasma membrane for the second mechanism that we call active transport. Okay. So what do we mean by active transport here? So active transport allows the plant to absorb mineral against a concentration gradient. Okay, besides that, okay, this kind of mechanism or process depend on special active transport protein molecule that embedded in cell membrane of the plant cell to pump specific solute or ion, okay, inside the plant cell. As we discussed in previous slide about the active and passive transport, membrane protein play a major role that aids in transport of substance across cell membrane belong to the plant cell. The most important active transport protein in the plasma membrane of the plant cell is the proton pump, which uses energy from activity to pump hydrogen ion out of the cell. This results in the proton gradient with the higher hydrogen ion concentration outside the cell than inside. Proton pump provide energy for solute transport. By pumping hydrogen ion out of the cell, proton pump produce an ion-hydrogen gradient and the charge separation called the membrane potential. These two forms of potential energy can be used to drive the transport of solute in plant cells. This slide entitled Uptake of Water and Solute by Individual Cell. Okay, this slide describes about another process or mechanism. Okay, happen inside the plant cell in transport of matter across the cell membrane below the plant cell using the proton pump protein molecule. Based on figure in this slide, this kind of proton pump molecule can transport in two types of ion, okay, inside the plant cell. For example, figure at the above belong to this slide. You can transport inside the plant cell two ions. The first one, hydrogen ion, and include for the nitrogen ion. So this kind of process or mechanism that we call as co-transportation process. Besides that, this proton pump protein molecule that embedded inside the plasma membrane belong to the plant cell also can pump in another molecule inside the plant cell beside the hydrogen ion. For example, inside the figure at the below part of this slide, whereby you can transport in another molecule that we call sucrose molecule inside the plant cell, that using a similar proton pump protein molecule that used by this plant cell to transport in hydrogen ion. Okay, we move to this slide. Now we move to this slide. Okay, entitled Absorption of Water and Mineral by the root cell. So based on this title, okay, it describes or explains the mechanism. The first one, how the water and mineral inside the soil can enter into the root tissue. So this is the mechanism or the process at the first stage, transportation of water and mineral that happens in the plant tissue. Okay, root absorb water and mineral from the soil. So how are roots adapted from their root? The outermost layer of the cell belongs to the root tissue that we call epithelial tissue layer. Okay, contain root hair cells. These have a long extension root hair that increase the surface area of root tissue to absorb mineral and water that present inside the soil. Then later on, they absorb water and mineral ion from the cell. So this is the mechanism. Involvement of structure that we call root hair that present on surface of root organ belong to the plant that helping for the plant to bring in hydrogen molecule, water molecule and input for the mineral that present in the cell get into the plant body or plant tissue. Information in this slide related to second level of plant transport, which is called short distance transport of water or solute in tissue, in plant tissue and organ. Water and mineral can travel through the plant by one of three routes or pathways. The first one, out of one cell, across the cell wall, and into another cell. This mechanism of process that we call transmembrane route. Okay, based on figure, this one we did this slide for the transmembrane route or pathway of the transportation of mineral and water molecule inside the plant tissue that we call transmembrane pathway process. That pathway refers to this pathway based on this figure, which is like this one. Next, the second type of pathway, transportation of mineral and also for the water molecule from cell to the cell. The second one that we call as via the simplest or simplistic route or simplistic pathway. Based on this figure, the route of simplistic pathway, okay, this is the route or the pathway, okay, based on figure that present inside this slide. Okay, the last one, later on, okay, the last one, the pathway that involved for the second level of plant transportation happen in plant tissue that we call apoplast route or pathway. So this is the pathway or route of transportation of mineral and water molecule using the pathway or the route that we call apoplastic route or pathway. This is the direction, the flow of mineral H2O inside the plant cell that we call apoplastic route or pathway. So this figure we need this time. Info related about this slide, two major compartments in plant tissue whereby water and mineral can be transported in between plant cell in plant body. The first compartment that we call the apoplast. So apoplast, the region whereby everything external to the plasma membrane or the living cell, includes cell wall, extracellular spaces, interior of that cell such as basal element and trachea. And the last compartment that very important for the plant in transport of mineral and H2O or water molecule inside the plant tissue that we call the synthase. So synthase means here the region whereby consists of entire mass of cytosol or the living cell in the plant, including the plasmodesmata. Now we want to discuss the third scale or the second level, the last mechanism or the process transportation of water molecule and include mineral inside the plant tissue. This is the third or the last process or mechanism in transportation of water molecule and include mineral that we call transportation of water and mineral into the xylem. Water and mineral from soil to the root need to enter the xylem to be transported to the rest of the plant. Okay. To pass from the soil solution into the root vascular tissue, water and mineral have to flow across several layers of the contact cells and also into for the epidermis tissue layer. For the epidermis is the innermost layer of the cell and the root contact surround the vascular cylinder and function as the last checkpoint for selective passage of mineral from the contact into the vascular tissue. This ensures the only material required the root pass through the epidermis, while toxic substance and pathogen are generally excluded. Continue the topic on transport water and mineral into the xylem. Water to pass into the root hair cell. Okay, they must pass through the root contact root cortex first via the simpler